The later cases had another hole up here. And this is what we're going to try to replicate today. So, what you need is one of these.
It always seems the details are the most important thing. Without the changes needed, that motor just won't sing. It's just another step that can't be missed for sure. But if you do it right, it will surely be the cure. It will surely be the cure. It will surely be the cure.
Well, hello, my name is Ralph and welcome to the channel. It's my time, let's go. Today we're getting ready to put the finishing touches on Brad's cases, I hope, but we've run across something here that I thought I would share with you all. Now, many people don't think about when you're replacing your oil pump on these old shovels as being a problem. But what we're running here is a 1973 to a 1980 set of cases. There's also the 70-72 cases, which are different again and have their very own unique oil pump. So when they were changing from the design from pre-69, they tried something new in 70, 71, and some 72s, which was a different sort of pump altogether and a different sort of cam cover. So those are very unique. If you have those year cases, have a good look. And you need a special jig to do a lot of the modifications that are needed on this. But today we're working on a 73 to 1980 set of cases. These are like 1975s. So we want to put a new oil pump on because the other one's shot, of course. So we go through what we can order and what we can't order. And you pretty well can't order ones for those cases, specific oil pumps. S&S maybe does list some, but I don't even know if they're available anymore. So what you're stuck with, or I shouldn't say stuck with, but what you need to use is an aftermarket pump like this, and they're readily available. So they list these pumps from 1973 to 1991, and they'll fit all through those years. But in 81, there was a definite change in the cases. The later cases had another hole up here, and this is what we're going to try to replicate today. And we need this hole up here for the new pump because the pressure relief valve here has its own hole right here. So we're just going to show you the difference in the faces of the pumps. They're like this, and you can see we've got our small little hole right up here on the top of this one, and this one doesn't have any, and this is the earlier 73 to 80 pump, and this is the 81 style up. This is our 73 to 91 pump here actually, and this is the early pump. What happens when this pump starts to work is the gears start to pump the oil to the top end, and that's the first thing that will happen. It'll pump the oil up to the top end, the rocker boxes, the lifter blocks, all those parts will get oil. So you see a pressure come up and all those things are happening, and the rocker arms and all that are being oiled. Once they've come up to pressure, then the piston inside the body, which is inside of this area, lifts up. And once it lifts up, it starts to put oil down to the pinion shaft. It's still pressurizing the top. It never stops pressurizing the top. But once it gets to a certain pressure, it pushes that piston up, and then it puts it down through these holes and right through this cavity here. And this will feed from the oil pump down to your cam cover and into the pinion shaft. So once that happens, everything's kosher. We got oil to the top end going, and now it's pressurizing the bottom end. Our pump in its original configuration had external oilers, but we've plugged all those holes off on the external oilers so that we're not going to have one going out there at all. So with that being turned off and everything, there's a chance you can get extra pressure, or with any system actually you can get some extra pressure. Once that extra pressure builds up in the new style pump, the piston will go up a little bit higher. If it's trying to put more pressure into the pinion shaft than's needed, it will go up a little bit higher, and then it will blow it out through this hole. And this is the hole that we've drilled into our cases. So it allows the excess pressure to build up in there and push it out into the case where the breather gear can pick it up and send it back into the oil tank. So we need that configuration on this. If we didn't drill the hole, once it reached that level that, wow, we've got the top end pressurized, we got the bottom end pressurized, now we got too much pressure, gaskets and stuff start to blow out all over the place. The oil pump starts to leak. Various things like that can happen, or it'll, excess oil will build up and blow it at the breather hole. All sorts of things can happen. So we don't want that over oiling. So by drilling this hole out and allowing the oil to go into the case, that lets the excess pressure go away. So that's why this modification is so important to do when you're putting up an updated pump onto these things. In our case, we're going to put a belt drive on. You're shutting off all the primary oiler. We need to have that there because once again, top end pressurized, pinion shaft pressurized to the bottom end, excess pressure, that piston comes up just a little farther and lets that excess pressure be spilled into the case instead of blowing your gaskets out. So I hope you make sense of that. It's just kind of a quick explanation of what's happening. So, what you need is one of these. So S&S makes a jig that covers all the pumps from 1970 right up to the modifications that you'll need. But you are able to buy one that is just specific for this task, which saves you a lot of money. You can order this piece for you guys in the States through V-Twin. Number is 16-1843. It also has an OEM number of 94461-81. So I had to dig around and find this, sort of an obsolete spot because I guess they'd rather sell you the S&S one, but this little jig is going to work fine. The kit comes with a little bag of screws, and these old cases, which are 1/4 by 20, are what you need for that. The oil pump also comes with 2 sets of bolts, so make sure you use the right ones. 1/4 by 20s for these older ones. So the 73 and up ones are 1/4 by 24, so don't get them mixed up. Now the kit just comes with a little bag of them like this, and it's only got 2 of them that actually fit on the case, but I've got a selection of them here of my own. These were lifter block screws, which are a different thread as well. They were early knuckle type lifter block screws. So be careful when you go to thread them in out of your new thing, because you'll get your pump on there and you'll start them in a couple threads and you'll think, oh, okay, it's tightening up a little bit. And before you know it, you're starting to tear threads out inside. So fortunately, they send you both. So what we're going to do is just install our jig, and I'm curious as to where the hole is going to be. So we use our proper 1/4 by 20s, and these are tapered screws and the jig is tapered. There we go. So when you tighten these down, they'll center this jig up. Now in order to drill the hole that we need, we've got to use a 5/32 drill. Now they do say that you could probably do it right on the bike and put some grease on your drill, and that will help, just go in, draw it back out, go in, draw it back out, and try to save from getting as many chips as you can in there. So I'm just going to snug these up in here a little bit. We're not really going to do the procedure, and I've got these special long tipped markers, which are great for getting down and marking inside a hole or drawing a circle down inside of something. But I should be able to go right in this hole, and I'll just wiggle it around a little bit, and that should show me approximately where my hole is going to go, and then I can look at it and go, yeah, that's it. So I'm just doing this really for demonstration to let you to have a look. And there, as you can see, we've got a black dot there, is right where our hole wants to be. So you could check this and put your gasket on there, your new gasket, and you can see that this is going to line right up there where that hole is. Now we just got to be brave and go ahead, drill her in. So let's snug her up. Okay, got some grease. We'll put a little on there, won't hurt any, as suggested. And we'll just let the drill follow the hole. We're not trying to make a new hole, we just want it to go in the existing hole. All right, I think what I'm going to do is drop some cutting fluid down in there. All right, and now we've got a hole inside the cavity for it to dump the excess oil into. It's a long ways down in there, so it's what you have to do to get at it. So, get our little jig off. It seems like a long ways in there, but you're drilling right through the case into the inner cavity, so you know it's to unload excess oil. And there we go. There we go. So we're just gonna take a little piece of sandpaper, just smooth that burr out, and that's our hole straight through to the inside of the case. Looks good. It's a bit tedious. You got to drill through. You're thinking you're just gonna pop into some little cavity there, but that ain't gonna happen. You've got to go right straight down through into the case. So take your time with it, make sure and clear the chips. Now the only chips that you're really going to get into it is on the inside of the cam chest. So if you put some rags in there, get yourself prepared. Just when you break through there is where you're going to get it. They're not going to go anywhere else. There's no hidden cavity in there that you're drilling into, so you don't have to worry about blowing it out through the tappet blocks and all that sort of thing. It's just a one-way through hole in there. Be careful not to bend your drill sideways or cock it. You could break the drill off in there. So just take your time, use this little jig, and that will make it happen. Let's get it cleaned up, let's blow it out, let's move on. And here's a set of 81 up cases with the hole right there that we're speaking about. So as you see in our earlier ones, we didn't have that. Now we do. And now our cases look very similar. Although some of the holes are a little smaller than they are on the 81 ups, they've been made bigger. Our relief ones are here. So now it matches. So what we're going to do is go along and put our oil pump on here now. I'd like to do that before I have the pinion shaft in the way, and that way I can also make sure that my oil pump is nice and free, which is number one important when installing your oil pump. I'm going to replace the gaskets with James gaskets, just because the other cheap ones are cheap ones, you know, and I don't know what they are, and they're kind of flimsy, and you know, they're mass produced. I had to pop all the holes out, and I just prefer it to have James on it. So I've taken an older shaft and I've covered it in oil here. I've just run it through there just to oil up my hole before I put the new one in. Put a little oil on that shaft. And we'll kind of get our gasket in place here, which we're going to have to fool with once it's on, but a little ways. And now I'm going to take some of my longer bolts here and I'm just going to position them through. Leave it out a little ways so I can get my gasket started on a couple through holes. So when I go to put the pump on here, I've taken the gears out so I can move things freely. I certainly can't turn my rod at all, and I cannot get the bolts into these two holes. And what's happening is there's an interference right there, and I can see it, the hump sticking out. You know, the pump would go back quite a ways if that little knob was off there. So it looks like I'm going to have to address that problem. In some cases you would take it off the pump. Now it seems to me, I remember in the S&S literature on their pumps and stuff that that could be a problem as well. with the interference on some of the earlier cases, so you have to check that. That pump has to be able to wiggle back and forth easily, very easily. Otherwise, you'll have binding and you won't be able to adjust it out. And there we can see where the machining hump is. You can see where I've marked it there. And there's actually a machined surface below it, and that's what's clearing the pump, is the machined area. But where I've got it marked is where the interference is, so we will have to do something with that. There's not a lot of material there, but I think we'll just see if we can just take out a minimal of what we need there to get that out of the way. The only other option would be to grind the pump, and being as it's chrome, I don't really want to do that. I might have to set it up in the mill and just mill that little bit out, down to that level. Looks like that's the plan. That's the plan, Sam. So we're just going to take very small amount off of that. I don't need it very much to try and get it to clear that pump body. I'm not down to depth where the other one is. I'm just going to take light cuts. Okay, we just got a little bit there. Without taking too much, I could take a couple little cuts there, but I'm gonna try my oil pump and see if I've got wiggly room. So we'll see about sliding the oil pump in. I can't get it in there because I'm clamped. Just gonna have to loosen the clamp for a moment. Just enough of it sticking through that I couldn't put the shaft through. Looks like it might have it. We'll try our screws. And now I've got room to move my pump so that I can make sure that my gears aren't binding. I had to grab that shaft with my little fingers. Now we're down, we've got lots of play. Let's see if the other ones will go in there. And we'll check our upper holes. Still don't quite have enough there. We've cut out enough for the pump body there, but just this very corner that's still holding it up. I can see that I'm probably cleared all right there, but this is the area. Just that nib. And I think that will allow it to come down pretty close in there. Okay, we're just barely nicking it there. There we go. So that'll about do that for that. You can't cut it off the old pump body. Like S&S says, you can grind it off the body. This one had an exceptionally big hump on there, and to take that little bit off of there is not going to hurt any, and we're assured that we got a nice fit so we can move the pump around and we got no binding. So we'll take it back over the bench, see if we can fit that pump on. So we're getting our gears assembled and getting them put together. And if you look carefully on some of these gears, there's a small dot on the top gear there. It's a very small dot. And there's a dot on the one inside. So we match those dots up. They don't have to be in the exact spot, but they do have to be facing up, being the same. There we go. We've checked that our keys are all good in there. We know they're good. Get my little bit of assembly lube this time for that shaft. Now we're going to stick some of these through. They're just in there to help us align the gasket while we shove her through our shaft through, holding on to the end. Get close, we'll start a couple of the screws in the holes. Again, we're just doing this for alignment to keep our gasket up in place. Okay, jam it up a little bit out so far. Yeah, I've got to back it off a little bit because they're not still going to keep it through the holes, but what's happening is we're hitting on the edge there. A little tricky to get it on over the hump there. Yeah, a little tricky trying to get this one in. You've got to get the gear in the back side. Got to back it off just enough to get our gear in there. Put our key in after it's in there. Make sure our gaskets are in place. I always like to look down inside here, because when you have something on its side, there's a chance the gaskets can slide over, you know, and be a little bit off to one side, but mine look like they're matching up there perfectly. And we've got some play here that we can move this as we tighten it up to make sure we have no interference there. All right, that looks good. There should be some fine washers here. We're just going to put a very, 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 very tiny bit of Loctite on there. Just enough to say something's on there. Just give it a good wipe like that. Okay, get our little washers on. Lord love it Jesus today. They will not go up. I'm going to have to take each one individually. The 4 long ones, they don't want to let the washer go up, which means I either have to try and open the inside up, which could be a little difficult. It will not go up there. Alright, I'm just going to take them over the lathe. Take a little bit of a file just to the top of the bolts and make sure that those things fit up into place. I don't want them being forced there as I'm torquing the bolts in and thinking I'm putting pressure on it. I'm binding up that washer. So I'll have to take a few minutes and make sure those are right. So I've got the gears turned around here, so I've got a good spot to put the keyway in and the clip on here. So I think we'll slide the other outer cover on so we can make sure that our gaskets are in place. Oh yeah. Those in first. They're a joy. They're a joy. So we'll slide these in first. Make sure I get room to get my little one in there, and I do. You're gonna have to tighten up the 4 outside bolts first anyway, as it is. The last 2 at the top are the last ones that you put into place, that you tighten, because the 4 body ones will get you so that you can make sure your gear is nice and free. We've removed all the chain oiler stuff and plugged the hole with the screw there. You can hear I got lots of wiggly room there. Make sure to line these up. So. Alright, my body loose so I can move it around. Now I'm going to put my key and my clip into the drive gear. Now we've got the little gear in there. Can be trying sometimes to get it here, but there it is in there. And we're going to make sure that that gear spins nice and free when the oil pump is tightened up. So that's what we're working on. Kind of hard to get in there sometimes, but lots of play in our pump, so we're just going to go around and start snugging up the 4 in the body while spinning the pump. And if I find that I'm binding at all, we'll loosen it up and we'll move it around. You can easily move that. Snugged up. Make sure that we're torqued up there. right. That should be good. It's not going to spin free like a push rod spins free, but you should be able to move it with your fingers easily. Shouldn't be any binding. I mean, you would feel it if you're binding up. And remember, it's got a new seal in it as well, so that puts a bit of drag on it, but that's got her. So we'll try to snug our front ones up here, even though we can't torque them. And we can spin that gear easily. Pretty hard to show you, but all right. So there we are thus far. 5-minute job. Get that oil pump on, but it's in there now. Alrighty. So, let's get ready to put our case halves together. I'm going to try my bearings and review my whiteboard and see where I'm at. All right. So we've geared up this main shaft so that I can slide my Timken bearings down on it. We put our spacer in. And then we put our case on. The inside bearing, the sprocket spacer I use, and then I've got a bunch of washers which are actually end play spacers for a knucklehead. So I use those just to set it up so that my small dial indicator can be set up in here, and I can set the shims to set the depth, so to speak. Put that on, this on. Now, most of the time the main bearings are where they should be, but because you're pressing new races in and stuff, you have to be careful. And then we can just wiggle it up and down to see if I've got any end play. Now that one's the original sort of one, and it is tight. So that one's not even half a thousandth of an inch. We're going to replace the inner ring. I've got a bunch of different ones that I keep here from different motors and such, so that I can check the end play and see where I'm at. So that one is too tight. So, and I know that once it's torqued, it's going to compress it even more. So just take that out. That out. That out. And we can take this small one, and this one's measuring out at 103 and a half, so it gives me an extra thousandth of an inch. So this is the one that we're going to go with. We can stick it back in there. I say most of the time everything is fine in there, but that it's too tight and we don't want that to happen. So by putting this one in here at this stage of the game, it should give me about another thousandth of an inch, which once this is compressed down and torqued, so we've got our little setup in here with our dial indicator, and we're checking our end play at our main bearing there. We've got a little tool with the dial indicator on it, and we're looking for between 1 and 3 thou on a new setup. So and that one's giving me a thousandth of an inch clearance there, and I come onto it pretty hard. It's not up to torque value, but it's bigger than what came with the set. So I think we're gonna go with that one and we'll be just fine. It's a small detail, but it's something that's often missed. And now that I'm down to this point, I like to check things when I can and make a little tool to see what kind of end play I got. 1/1000th of an inch max. All right, now with that done, we're gonna go with that spacer and that ring. We'll start putting them together. All right, so we're gonna grab the bottom end and we're gonna start putting that together in the cases. And just one final check. I'm gonna shoot some cleaner through our pinion shaft. I knew it was okay, but sometimes I like to check and double check things just to make sure. Just to make sure. I did check all the holes, I did all that. All right, let's put her with the pinion side down. Try not to bang it around when you're doing this. Be gentle with it. Now, we need to get our inside one on. And as I said before, I've set my bearings aside. And as with everything, we like to put some oil on it to help the bearings slide down on here. There we go. Sleeve and our tool. Make sure your bearing is facing up. It's got to fit into the race on that side. Okay, I'm going to put a little assembly lube in there, just ever so gently. Okay, we are going to take our ring. Nice. There we go. That just feels nice there. Okay. So if you enjoyed this video this week, like, subscribe, comment, ring the bell, do those kind of things. It helps us to grow. Please check out my buddies down south, Hippie's Chopper Corner and Slickhead's Custom Cycles. They're all working hard to bring you great content every week, so check them out, hit that like button and subscribe. Well, we're one step closer to Marley's bottom end. I thought I'd have a finish this week, but we're not quite there. There's always things that back you up more than what you expect, but I hope that you found the information useful as I tried to lay it out as best I could. Next week, we'll have her finished for sure. I've been in touch with Brad. He's going to come down and help me get it in the case and pick it up, and away she'll go to the Cayman Islands. So, another trip, another vintage machine, another story I'm allowed to be part of, which has been just great. I love being part of the stories as they go along. So stick with us. I hope you're enjoying the content. Check out these videos. I'll see you next week.